You're listening to Fire Ecology Chats, a podcast series by the Association for Fire Ecology.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bob Keane. I am editor-in-chief of the internationally renowned journal Fire Ecology. Fire Ecology is a cooperative effort between Springer Nature, who does the publishing of the journal, and AFI, the Association for Fire Ecology, which owns and oversees the journal. Today, we are going to be talking about a wicked cool paper, a paper I really enjoyed reading on burn severity, because I really enjoy papers on burn severity. And we have Eli Orland here. Eli, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, Bob. Thanks for having me. My name is Eli Orland. I am a research scientist with dual affiliation at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center and the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I sit within the Earth Sciences Division, where I work with a research group that tries to track wildfires worldwide.
And this is a great paper you're going to talk about today. I really appreciate your time you're spending with us. Eli, the name of the paper for those who are listening is Near Real-Time Indicators of Burn Severity in the Western U.S. from Active Fire Tracking. Eli, can you tell us why you did this paper?
As soon as a fire ignites, there is a race to try to understand what impacts it will have after the flames are out. Typically, this relates to vegetation mortality, but also hydrological hazards, such as impacts to water quality, or flash floods, or debris flows, or anything else you might see on the news. Getting these insights is challenging, and it sometimes takes quite a bit of time, especially if the fire leads to cloudy or smoky scenes from other satellite images. So we wanted to take an approach that uses thermal imagery to better understand both what leads to burn severity and how quickly we can get that information to others.
It's a really cool study, and I hear that it's part of a larger effort. Can you put this study in context and tell us about the other things that are related to this study?
This work is part of a much larger research effort where we are using satellite data to begin to think of fires as the objects and episodic events that they are. Typically, a satellite will try to represent a fire as maybe a burning pixel. What we're trying to do is to categorize them as discrete events that grow and change over time. There's a lot of research that we're putting into this right now. We're trying to relate fire spread rate and intensity to emissions, to burn severity, the way that I'm working on it, and trying to understand the impacts that meteorological factors such as wind speed have on fire spread at the continental scale. Just to give you one example, the 2023 wildfire season in Quebec was obviously monumental, and we are trying to understand how these fires might even synchronously grow together by being able to track them as discrete objects together.
Personally, I'm just giddy about learning about this study. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about this study so we're all on the same page here?
One of the key insights that we found was that oftentimes it is the combination of both the intensity and the persistence of fires, especially in dense ecosystems like forests, that lead to the highest burn severity classifications. To be more specific, when you think of elevated tree mortality rates or even delayed tree mortality, it's truly the intense burning that tends to really linger on the landscape that leads to these long-term implications. One of the more surprising results that we found is that even as dramatic as fast spreading fires might be, and believe me, they are still very impactful and dramatic, the rate of spread of a fire is not as significant of an indicator of burn severity as, say, its intensity or how long it's burning on the landscape.
So, what were the methods you used to get at indications or maps of fire severity and fire behavior?
The approach we take is one that is still evolving, but is quite novel. We're able to take the individual detections from satellites, these thermal anomalies, and we start grouping them both in space and time. And we get new data every 12 hours, so we can start constructing the 12-hour progression time series of individual fire events. But importantly, we can also distinguish the differences in how quickly they grow, how hot they burn. We can even start thinking about categorizing different components of the fire as it spreads. So this might be the burning front, as well as smoldering that might be occurring behind the fire line, or parts of the fire that are growing faster than others, where the fire on the flanks might be growing at a slower rate. We try to break all that down into these individual components and start computing the spread rate of each component, its intensity, and its persistence on the landscape. And then we tie those statistics back into standardized burn severity products, such as those provided by the Monitoring Trends in Burn Severity, or MTBS program.
That's fantastic that you can do this in 12-hour growth increments. I was just amazed that we get almost a real-time growth. Usually the satellite imagery for severity takes months to get, and you're talking about a 12-hour. That's pretty incredible. So tell us, how can managers use these evaluations to plan for the fire or plan what happens after the fire?
Part of the way we designed this study was to work directly with those that are in need of making decisions. One of our co-authors is responsible for delivering the post-fire imagery, the burn severity imagery, to burned area emergency response or BEAR teams. We worked with him to try to understand how we could help expedite the transfer of information. How quickly could we get estimates of burn severity into his hands so that he can then provide it to the emergency response teams. In an ideal world, we're not doing anything to replace the conventional products, but as there is an increasing lag time between getting these conventional products in their hands, we're trying to fill that gap with this interim information. And that will help them plan where they do their assessments and even target where the highest risk areas might be.
Yeah, I can see this being really, really useful. Planning for the host activities that need to be done after a fire.
One of the other insights that we found is that the Monitoring Trends of Burn Severity program provides estimates of delayed tree mortality. To make these estimates, you usually have to wait up to 1 year to look at the next growing season to understand the impacts that the fire had. We were able to quantitatively link metrics such as fire intensity and persistence to delayed tree mortality so that we can provide areas of anticipated delayed tree mortality up to 1 year in advance before that imagery can actually be taken.
Well, I surely appreciate your time today, Eli, to talk about this wonderful study. And usually, when there's a study of this great complexity giving us such a wonderful fire severity product, there are a number of people involved. And I know I counted 14 co authors, which is a veritable who's who of remote sensors and fire people. So I wonder if you want to recognize your co authors of funding agencies.
Yes, I would be remiss not to mention all of the incredible scientists that I worked with. So this includes those that are in my group at NASA with me. So that includes Tempest McCabe, Shane Caulfield, Doug Morton, Melanie Fleck-Cook, and Alexei Shiklomanov. Also worked with wonderful people at the University of Irvine, Rebecca C. Schulten, Yang Chen, Jim Randerson, Tina Liu. I'd also like to thank my USGS colleagues, Rachel Lohman, Curtis Nelson, Birgit Peterson, and Zeb Becker, who also works with us on the NASA side. This work was funded by NASA. It's also receiving ongoing support through NASA's new FireSense program over the next 5 years.
I'll mention that Rachel and some of the other people are associate editors of the journal, so we thank them for their participation. Eli, and I want to thank you for telling us all about the paper and give us an enjoyable 5 minutes on a wonderful study that people should read. Now, those of you who have been listening today, if you want to read this paper, guess what? You can download it for free. Eli and NASA have already paid the freight to go ahead and download this paper because Fire Ecology is an open access journal. So please feel free, go to our website, download it for free, and read about this wonderful new product. Eli, thank you again, and please turn in and come to the next Fire Ecology Chat.
Thank you for listening to Fire Ecology Chats, a podcast series by the Association for Fire Ecology. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to our show and leave us a review. To learn more about fire ecology and support our future work by becoming a member, visit fireecology.org. fireecology.org.